Let's start working on the validation of our gradebook application. And we've already done a little bit, but let's double check and take a look at some of the things that we have done so far. So I'm going to head down over to my view.jsp. And here in my view.jsp, up here towards the top of the file, we added our 2 Liferay UI success messages. So these success messages are coming over from our controller classes, right? Passing the key within the render request object using the class session messages, right? We can do the same thing with errors as well, right? We can pass errors using the session errors class, add a specific key within our render request object. Same idea, different class, we use a different tag to display those error messages. Right, so just confirm that you have the added and the update success messages all good to go. And once you do, let's go ahead and test this out a little bit. So I'm going to head over to my instance of Liferay and sign back in, test at liferay.com, password of test. Once we've signed back in, let's go ahead and create a new assignment. So we have our back button there. I'll click on that back button a couple times, see how far back it'll take me. So we'll go back one more time. So our application here, we're going to click on that blue plus button over on the right hand side. So blue plus button, and go ahead and create another assignment. Feel free to call it whatever you want. You can call it assignment number 2. You can call it my assignment. You can call it Eddie, I don't want to do this anymore. It's way too long. Whatever you want to call it. Description, same story. Feel free to add any description you like. It is your environment. I am not able to see it, so right, we're all good there. And then once you're ready, go ahead and click on that save button. Once we've clicked on the save button, you'll see the success message right here. I almost forgot about it. So we see the success message, assignment added successfully, and so far so good. So we have the added. Let's go ahead and update one. So I'll work on the one we just created, clicking on the options button that lines up with it, revealing the edit button, and then we'll go ahead and click on that edit button. Right, from there, make any sort of changes you want. I'll make this assignment number 888. And we can say the due date is Saturday. That's tomorrow for me. Whenever it is for you, right, feel free to add that date. And then let's click save. Right, we see our assignment has been updated successfully this time around. So very good. We have it added. We have it updated. Let's take a look back over at Developer Studio. And not the view.jsp, but we're going to head over to the edit. Let's do the edit assignment.jsp. Right, over here we have our form. We went over this, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it again. So down here towards the bottom using Alloy UI, right, we're creating a form and we're using Alloy UI's validator class. Right, so we can have a title, make it required, add some additional logic here to do the check, right? We can also do the same thing for our other inputs, our other fields. All right, so now that we have that taken care of, right now we only have UI or client-side validation helping us out. What we're going to do is we're going to incorporate some server-side or some back-end validation to ensure that whatever's going on behind the scenes is actually happening. Now, generally, what we're about to do, I would say, is in a little bit poor taste, but I'm going to follow what instructions I have in front of me. But just as a fair judgment call, I'll leave it up to you. We're giving you guys that heads up. So we're going to head over to the gradebook service. Here in the gradebook service module, we're going to be creating a new package. Right, so I'll right click the source main Java, heading over to new, and then we're going to be creating that package. The name of the package is going to be com Liferay training, gradebook, service, and then validation. Now again, for me, I generally try not to have dependencies on my implementation classes, or more specifically, the whole implementation module, right? What we'll see later on in a future chapter is we have the ability to change up our implementations and whatnot. If you wanted a full-blown brand new implementation, right, we would have to swap it out. And to me, right, I don't like having that dependency. I don't like being coupled with the implementation in that way. But that's me personally. Here in this example, we'll go through it, and I'll leave that assessment up to you. And this will still work in the long run at the end of the day. So creating that package, from here we're going to head back down to our snippets. And down here in our snippets, I need to first expand it out. So we're here in the solutions, folder number 6. Let's see, snippets. Right now we are still in section 4, create the presentation layer, step number 6. So making progress, gradebook service. Let's expand this out, source main Java, com, Liferay training, gradebook service, validation. Right, so very nested here. Let's go ahead and copy that assignment validator class, head back up towards our gradebook service, and then we will paste that validator class within the package that we just created. All right, from here, let me take a peek. I may have misspelled something. Let's poke around. Let's see what this error is. It's towards the bottom. This exception here, right? The assignment validation exception. The error is with this errors list that's being thrown. This is not a parameter that the assignment validation exception knows about. And so what we need to do is add it. So we're going to head back over to our gradebook API. And here within the gradebook API, we're going to go to our source main Java, and then heading over to the package that ends in exception. And then from here, we're going to go to the assignment validation exception. Now that we're here, we're going to be towards the bottom of the class. Okay, so down here towards the bottom, we're going to have another assignment validation exception. Right, and we're going to have the parameter, and have a list of strings, and we're going to call that errors. Right. From there, we'll do super string join. Okay, and then errors. Then our errors here are going to be equal to the errors coming in from the method. All right. With our list, public list, string, capital S. Right, we're going to get our errors. Right, this method is simply just going to return the errors. And then last thing, taking care of that errors, the underscore errors that is. So private to list of strings, or string I should say, and we're going to call it errors. Save along the way, and then I'll be sure to use Control-Shift-O to bring in our import for the list. All right, so we're going to be using the Java util list, so Java utility list. All right, so it takes care of that. It'll take care of the error over in the assignment validator. Right, letting everything update. It does take a brief moment in time, waiting for it to do its thing. and we see the update happen. Let's go ahead and take a look at the assignment validator itself. So backend validation is going to occur within this assignment validator class. So the assignment validator is going to be our helper class or utility class. It's going to help us do some validation behind the scenes. And so we're going to be using a couple of methods to help us out. First one we see here is the isAssignmentValid. So this method here is going to check each one of the different fields that we have to ensure that this is indeed valid. So we'll see, is the title valid? Is the due date valid? Is the description valid? We're going to have methods that's going to help us out with that. So starting off with our validator, and this is Liferay's validator. So in actuality, we are creating a validator class that's going to leverage Liferay's validator. So this validator here, we're going to check to see if our description field is blank. We're going to strip all of the fun stuff of the description so that way no one's able to execute any code behind the scenes, right? From there, if everything is good to go, no worries, this if statement stays good, right? No big deal. But if the description is blank, what we're going to do is within our list, we're going to be adding a specific string, which is going to act like a key. So this will be matched up with a value over in language.properties, and we're going to find a way to display this in a little bit. From there, we have our result flip from true to false, and then we're going to return the result. Same idea is going to occur for the due date. Check to see this time, right? Is it null, right? If it is, we got an error. There's something wrong. We're going to add a string to our list, flip that result from true to false, return the result. Same idea here with the title. We're doing a little bit more here because the title is a map because of our localizing of the title. But otherwise, the whole essence of this is still going to be the same idea. All right. So doing some validation throughout the way. All right, so very good. Before we push on, the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to head over to our gradebook service project. Heading over to build and then build service. We're going to be running service builder just one more time. All right, now that we've finished running service builder, we're going to head over to our assignment local service impl. So over in our gradebook service, we're going to the assignment local service impl. Within the package service impl, assignment local service impl, and then from here we're going to scroll down just a little bit, and we're looking for that placeholder for assignment validation. Let's go ahead and enter some code here and leverage our assignment validator. All right, so we're going to be using that assignment validator class. So we can reference our assignment validator like so. Use Control-Shift-O to bring in the import. When I hit dot, it gives us a couple different options here. Yeah, let's go ahead and use validate, right, to validate the assignment as a whole. So we'll pass in the title map, the description, and the due date. Right, so then Liferay will then go through and ensure that everything there is okay. We see an error here on group. I wonder what that one's about. Oh, it just wants us to import some stuff. So let's use Control-Shift-O one more time. And we're going to be using the Liferay group, right? Again, in Liferay, group is analogous to our site. So we want the Liferay one. All right, so very good. Let's go ahead and we're going to do the same thing down for the update assignment as well. So not only do we want to do some checking when we create the assignment, we also want to do some checks when we update it as well. So scrolling down, scrolling through, looking for the update. I probably already passed it. There it is. So there's the update, and let's do the same thing. So down here, assignment validator dot, and then we're going to validate one more time, passing in those same parameters. Title map, description, due date. All right, now that we have that taken care of, go ahead and save the file, and we're going to head over to our submission local service impl. So over here in the submission local service impl, we're going to do, that's right, the same thing. Right, so down here we have that placeholder for our submission validation. Right, and before we push on, there's one thing I forgot to do. We need to do the same thing for our submissions as well. So we're going to have an assignment validator as well as a submission validator as well. So getting a little bit ahead of myself before we are actually implementing the validation. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to head back over to our Gradebook API and expand out the project. And here in the Gradebook API, we're going to head over to the submission validation exception. So here in the submission validation exception, we're going to be adding the same thing that we did over in the assignment validation exception, just changing a couple of things up along the way. So down here towards the bottom of the class, I'm going to be creating this public. This is going to be the submission validation exception. All right, and then list of strings. And this list of strings is going to be called errors. Okay, from here. Right. And just adding the same thing that we did before. String join. Okay. And then the errors here. Errors. And then finishing this off with a semicolon. Right, making public list string. To get our errors. Okay, and then return. Let's bump this down here. We're going to return our errors. Okay, and then we got to create that list of errors. Private list. It's going to be called errors. And then finishing this off, we're going to use Control-Shift-O to bring in the import for our list using the Java util list. Once you have that, go ahead and click Finish. All right, we'll save the file, and then we will rerun Service Builder by selecting that build service. All right, once we do, we'll wait for Service Builder to finish up. We can keep track of its progress down here at the bottom right. Right. Since I was making some changes over there, we haven't made anything big yet, so I'll go ahead and save along the way. All right, now that that is done, let's head over to our submission local service impl. So I have it here in this tab. And back here in the submission local service impl, we're in the add submission method. And what we want to do again is to validate the submission that's coming through. Right, so we have the placeholder for the submission validation. And we're going to be calling a method called validate submission. Okay, and then from here, we just need to pass each one of these parameters. Let's bump this down just to make it a little bit more neat. All right, and then I'll base it out like so. All right, just to make it a little bit more readable here. So we need 4 parameters here within our method signature. So the first one is the company ID, and we can get that from the service context object. So using the service context within our add submission. Right, so service context dot get company ID. It's already selected from the auto select. You can use again Control Spacebar to get that. So get company ID. Student ID is coming through, so we're good there. Assignment is good as well, and then our submission text is also good, so no worries there. Let's scroll down a little bit looking for our update submission method. And here in the update submission method, we have another placeholder for submission validation. We're going to be doing the same thing this time around. Okay. Right, and so for this placeholder, we're using the same method, the validate submission. And then I'll use control spacebar to auto-complete it. The first parameter, again, is going to be the company ID, and we can get that once more from the service context object. So service context, get company ID. Right, student ID this time around is not a parameter within the update submission. So we're not going to be able to get it from the parameters here. Instead, what we can do is we can get it from the submission object itself. So we got the submission object already. So we can use the submission object to get our student ID, like so. Okay, let's bump this down here just to make it a little bit more neat. All right, so I'll bump this down and just to give us a little bit more space. And then the rest of the parameters are good to go. We'll go ahead and save along the way, right? And whenever we do saving, or whenever we do something here within our implementation classes, it's always a good idea to run Service Builder one more time. So I'll go ahead, run Service Builder again, just in case. All right, now that that is finished up, again, we are working on validation. And so with validation, we also have the idea of feedback along the way. The first part is making sure that the assignments and submissions that we create are valid. Everything that needs to be filled out is filled out, and any other checks that we need to do have been completed as well. That's the first part there. The next part is if things go right or if things go wrong, we want to be able to send a message back over to our end user. And so that message is going to be sent over in the controller layer. And the controller layer for us is going to be implemented using our MVC commands. So let's head over to the Gradebook web and take a look at a couple of our MVC commands. So Gradebook API, I'm going to collapse this. Gradebook service, we're going to do the same. Just collapsing some of our various projects. Going to clean up a little bit and clear everything. Right, that way, again, we're clean. We're not going to get lost in open files or open projects. So over here in the Gradebook web, taking a look at the source main Java, going down here to portlet actions, and there's a couple of them we'll take a look at. Let's start first at the add assignment MVC action command. So the add assignment MVC action command, as we scroll down, I'm looking for a couple of comments here. So down here on my line 95 in this catch block, we see this comment here, and we're going to uncomment that. Right, so what's going to happen here is we're going to be getting that errors list. Right, so if there is a error, we're putting a specific key within that errors list. Over here in the controller layer, we're going to be retrieving that list of errors and then passing off those specific strings as keys within the action request object. Right, once we hit the view layer, we're going to have that specific Liferay UI tag to display the errors. So here on line 95, I'll go ahead and uncomment this. You can remove the comments just by backspacing them. I like to use the keyboard shortcut Control-Shift-C. It toggles comments. Right, so from our validation exception, right, we're going to be getting our errors if there are any. Right, and then using the session errors class, we're going to be adding those different error strings to the action request object. And then again in the view layer, it's going to pick up those keys and then display the error message that corresponds with them. Right, we know that those messages are over in our language.properties. All right, so let's head over. We're gonna do a couple more here. Let's go to the edit assignment MVC action command. Be careful here since there is the action and the render command. So we'll be selecting the edit assignment MVC action command. Right, same story. Let's scroll down a little bit looking for that comment for the errors. This time around in the edit assignment, it's on line 94. So once you find it, go ahead and remove the comment. A couple more we're going to be working on. The next one is going to be the edit submission MVC action command. So edit submission MVC action command. We'll scroll down a little bit, and this one is on line 101. Here on line 101, once you've found that comment, go ahead and uncomment it. Make sure to save along the way. You can click on the floppy disks up here at the top left, or you can use Control-Shift-S. Right, so after saving, after it deploys, one more left to go. We're going to be heading down to the grade submission MVC action command. Navigating into the grade submission MVC action command, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. This one's a little bit shorter. Here on line 74 is where I can find that comment. Once you found it, right, you know what to do. Go ahead and uncomment, and then we can save one last time. So this takes care of this part of the exercise. Before we leave, let's take a look again one more time at the train of thought, the process, or the processes that are going to be happening. I'm going to start over here in the UI, and we'll sign back in really quick. All right, so over here, I'm going to sign back in. Test@liferay.com, password of test. All right, now that we've signed back in, let's talk first about what happens here in the UI. So I'm going to click on the plus button here on the right-hand side. We know that's going to be calling an MVC render command to render this JSP here. We fill out the fields however we want. And then once I click on the save button, what's going to happen is we're going to be calling the add assignment MVC action command. So over here in the add assignment MVC action command, right, we call the do process action. We get the parameters and the objects that we need, right, in order to call our assignment service to add our assignment. So we're calling the add service. This is the API that corresponds with the remote service. So the remote service is implemented by the assignment service impl. So we'll take a look at the assignment service impl, right? And the assignment service impl will call the add assignment. We'll call our permission checker to be sure that the user who is trying to create the assignment has the proper permissions to add an assignment. Once we do, the remote service here is actually just a wrapper for the local service. So we do permission checking, and then we call the add assignment local service, right? Or the local service. So assignment local service is the implementation of the local service. From here, we then hit our assignment validator, and the assignment validator, assuming everything is good, everything will pass through, and then we'll eventually create and send that assignment to persist over in the database, right, creating that permission resource along the way. Right, that's assuming everything goes good. But if things do not go good, right, we're going to be stuck here in the validator, and the validator is going to be passing these various strings, which are kind of like keys, to this errors list. Right, once the errors list is populated with all of the errors that we hit, right, back over in the add assignment, we're going to hit the catch. Since we tried and failed, we hit the catch, we get the errors list, add each string to the action request object, so that when our JSP re-renders, right, we're going to be displaying all of those errors. And so over here, looking at our JSPs, in the edit assignment.jsp, this is where we have the Liferay UI error tag picking up each key. And we're going to be displaying a specific message for each error that hits. And again, the message is also in a key format, and that key is going to pick up its value over in language.properties. Right, so that was the rundown of this part of the exercise validation. Right, we're going to be moving on to the next part pretty soon, but let's first talk about adding some style and some flair to our application.